I didn't hate Fede Alvarez's Alien Romulus, the latest Alien movie. I very much enjoyed it, but as I mentioned in much more detail in my review of the film, I had major problems with the movie. It's such a shame, really. The movie had a lot going for it, and within the first 45 minutes or so, it was really shaping up to be something cool. There was a real lived-in feeling of the world building. Seeing the blue-collar workers on the moon planet was different, and the initial exploration of the ship was patient and well orchestrated. But it's like somewhere along the line, the movie got cold feet and suddenly lost all its confidence, and what followed was a bizarre step-by-step retread of the previous Alien films, right down to specific shots being recreated, like Hicks showing Ripley how to use the pulse rifles, Ripley coming out of the elevator amid the smoke and lights, and of course, the cringe-inducing "get away from her, you bitch" line. It's really disappointing. On a level, Alien Romulus is a highly successful hit. It ticks all the boxes: practical effects, good sets, surprises in the third act and whatnot. It delivered a great movie for a 2024 young audience, but I think older fans and people deeply familiar with the Alien franchise did have problems with it. Like said third act, I've seen a lot of people say it was crazy and weird, but wasn't it just straight out of Alien Resurrection? And Resurrection did it crazier and weirder. Ultimately, I come away from the movie not really thinking it added much to the universe, and it didn't even work as a standalone picture because it just copied what came before. Honestly, as much as these two films infuriated me, I would rather watch Ridley Scott's Prometheus and Alien Covenant again. At least they had interesting ideas, explored new things. I've got nothing against a standalone Alien film, the idea of going back to the franchise's roots and telling a haunted house story set in space, but it didn't have faith in itself and it wasn't effective. On paper the ingredients were there, but I felt nothing from the film. None of the scares made me feel anything, they just made me appreciate the film on a technical level. Let me give you an example from one scene. There's one part where we see a quick shot of a monitor and the two main characters stop in their tracks and the heroine says, "Do you see it?" And then we cut back to the monitor and see the xenomorph emerge. It's so quick, there's no real tension, no feeling. A far better way to have done that would be to linger on the monitor shot, allow the more eagle-eyed audience members to spot that there's actually a Xeno in the corner. It would also be a great homage to Alien the Director's Cut, being that this is a film obsessed with homages. And then the heroine says her line to prompt us to take a closer look. And then the shot slowly lingers again, and then the xenomorph emerges. It would have given this scene a much more creepier feeling, that feeling you get when you notice a spider on the wall behind you and you think, how long was that there for? In the same way you'd be thinking, damn, there was an alien there the whole time, how creepy. But anyway, the signal to Disney, who now own the Alien franchise, is that what we got in Romulus is the way forward. Alvarez has talked up a sequel to the film, and with the amount of money that the movie has made, there's no way Disney won't push forward with a second film. Which brings me to the title of this video. Why, in spite of the clear accolades that Romulus has gotten, have I predicted that the next one will be poor? And not just poor in terms of what people think, but critical consensus. Well, it's because I feel that Romulus is a formulaic safe movie that follows a path that has been paved out by other modern blockbusters, and that path includes sequels. Let's go back to Star Wars Episode 7, the first Star Wars film under Disney's belt. Like with Romulus, The Force Awakens was praised for being a course correction from chaos that preceded it. It was heaped with praise, universally so, and I felt like I was going crazy in that it seemed like I was the only person who saw the movie for what it was, a soulless corporate conveyor belt studio product. And like with Romulus, a complete retread of what came before, basically a remake of A New Hope. Nobody seemed to share my opinion, whether in my personal life or in the online sphere. Even those that acknowledged that the movie copied a lot from A New Hope seemed to dismiss these criticisms as something minor. But times have changed, of course, and it's been kind to my opinion. Beat for beat, The Force Awakens did what A New Hope did. The old mentor character delivering exposition before being bumped off about halfway through, for example. Ben Kenobi in the original and Han Solo in the sequel. Just one of many examples. Nostalgia bait being something else the movie heavily relied on, which is so big nowadays. And The Force Awakens was one of the first films to truly kind of embrace this. The Force Awakens just did everything worse than A New Hope, and I still stand by my opinion that I'd rather watch the prequels. At least those movies had ideas, they had creativity, like Prometheus and Alien Covenant. In The Force Awakens, Han Solo was even wearing the same clothes as he was 30 years ago. That's how afraid the film was of making changes, how much of a lack of bravery it had. People did start to clock on a few months after the film came out and the nostalgia had died down that, hey, hang on, this movie didn't bring much new to the table. So much so that J.J. Abrams, the director, had to address this issue in interviews. So the next film had to do something different. It couldn't just be a cowardice retread. And though it did share plot similarities with Empire Strikes Back, The Last Jedi did try to do things differently. If anything, it swung too far in the other direction, desperate to subvert expectations at every turn, starting with Luke Skywalker throwing away the lightsaber. So by the time the third film came out, they were in full panic mode, throwing everything at the screen hoping something would stick. Somehow Palpatine returned, horses in space and all of that. So a soulless first film, a second one which tried something different, and a third one that was dead on arrival. But notice it was the third movie that critics piled on, the first of the trilogy that was properly panned. It's always the third that seems to get the criticism that the entire trilogy deserves, because by that time the nostalgia, the copium, has finally worn off, and what this entails is the entire trilogy coming away with a poor reputation, which it seems to have now. But of course we have to remember that the first movie was actually very much loved. It's a similar story in the Halloween universe. I'm actually a big fan of the 2018 reboot, but I'll be the first guy to say it was a very safe film, not wanting to commit to any concrete ideas about Michael Myers for fear of annoying one segment of the fan base or the other. It was full of callbacks and references to older movies, though admittedly done much better than the likes of The Force Awakens, where it was just lazily copying. The homages were better done here, but I did think to myself, well, that was fun, but they need to be braver with a sequel. And they were. But with bravery comes risk, and Halloween Kills, again like The Last Jedi, it borrowed plot elements from Halloween 2, being set in a hospital for much of its runtime, for example, but it tried to be different, it tried to leave a mark. The town turning on Michael Myers, fighting back, evil dies tonight. You can see that they tried, it was just a crap movie. And the third one? Well, does anybody even remember the third one? What did I say about Rise of Skywalker? Dead on arrival. The trend is not limited to just two franchises, you can see this everywhere. Take Jurassic World for example, the soft reboot of Jurassic Park. When that came out, I felt like I was the only one who hated it. The premise of the park finally actually being opened was promising, but it just turned into a poor Jurassic Park remake, except everything was worse. The child actors, some horrible bland colour grading, a ridiculous idea of a camouflage hybrid monster dinosaur. Like, why would anybody pay to see an attraction where the dinosaur was invisible? And some really poor CGI. But the movie was a huge hit. Its sequel, again, a movie which tried something different, the whole haunted house style second half, was received negatively. Like the previous examples of second entries into franchises, this movie did have a plot that was reminiscent of previous second installments, in this case, The Lost World Jurassic Park, but it tried to do something new, but it just didn't do it well. And just like with the Star Wars universe, with the third film, they threw everything they could at the movie, bringing back the original trio and pairing them up with the new cast. So many dinosaurs, giant bugs or something, I don't even remember. But this movie was unanimously considered the worst, and all of the complaints, nostalgia bait, lackluster effects, were all there in the first installment, but people were blinded by nostalgia at the time. And the third film, like with Star Wars and Halloween, massively damaged the reputation of the entire trilogy, with all three of these third films following misguided but ambitious entries into their respective franchises. Bringing it back to Alien Romulus, does all this sound eerily familiar? The Alien movies got weird with what Scott was trying, and now we have a safe, straightforward back-to-basics movie which tries so hard not to offend any entry into the franchise, but in of itself lacks identity because it relies too heavily on callbacks. You even have exact issues and plot elements from the other examples, like the Han Solo elder nostalgia bait exposition machine who dies a while later, which in this case was Ash. But where do we go from here? Already people are complaining that the movie copied too much from previous movies, in what must be some kind of Disney mandate. It has to try something in the next one, it has to commit to an idea, to go out there. And with the lack of quality writing and risk-taking in mainstream Hollywood today, and an obsession with giving fans what they want, what they think fans want, plus previous examples, do we really see the sequel to Romulus being a really good movie? It'll swing for the fences, sure, as per tradition by this point, but it won't do a good job and they'll be scratching their heads when it comes to the third film, and they'll probably end up throwing everything they can at it. Heck, we'll probably see Predators in the third entry. My prediction is that after the safe, formulatic Alien Romulus, we'll get a sequel that takes a swing but misses, and then a third entry that is a major low point and nostalgia bait on steroids, leading the consensus on Romulus to change, and the entire trilogy to be condemned as misguided, as others before it. So what do you make of my thoughts on where the Alien franchise is headed? Let me know in the comment section below, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.